Great taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.
Welcome to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Steve Bosch, your host every week for 60 minutes of delicious radio on KRUU, and once a month from Green Building Supply, right? First Tuesday of every month. And so that's where we're coming live to you from right now, except, of course, by the time you see this, well, actually, there's some people on live stream watching this right now, but otherwise you'll be seeing the video of this on the Fairfield Media Center website, their YouTube channel. And, of course, the broadcast on KRUU will be on Wednesday and Friday, the Tuesday after we record this. So the next show, by the way, will be on Tuesday, September the 5th. That's the first Tuesday in September, the day after. We hope what everybody has is a very long and comfortable Labor Day weekend. And we'll be here at 7 o'clock. The show this week, right? Anticipation. Yes. For many of you, you've already tasted part of it, right? Since you were here and you got to enjoy a little bit of a taste. But we're going to be utilizing fresh produce from the Maharishi University of Management student farm, and we're going to be cooking some things we still don't even know exactly probably what we're going to be cooking. But we're going to be making, we have sweet corn, and we're going to be making a miso buttered sweet corn. And so those of you who tasted that miso butter, that's what it's for the sweet corn. And there's a surprise dessert, I understand. I don't know if Chris Johnson. I don't know if you want to tell people about the surprise now or you want to just wait.
Sure, we can spill the beans now, I suppose.
I hope it's not beans.
No, it's beets, actually. We're making a beet velvet slice cake with tangy citrus frosting. And this is going to be raw and vegan.
Wow. Okay, so you've done some prep, though, already.
I have done prep. I actually have made this cake twice now. The first time I made it was for my girlfriend Sheila's birthday, and it turned out really well, so I'm feeling pretty confident about it.
All right. And again, this is Chris Johnson, who's the manager of the student farm in the Sustainable Agriculture Department. And we're going to get to talking to hopefully other people in the Sustainable Agriculture Department during the show. Dan Harvey's with us. He's going to be talking with us a little bit later. And right now we have this lovely lady who is making, what are you doing?
I'm making pesto with a mortar and pestle.
Yeah, and I don't think, you know what? I'm going to ask you to move over a little bit so they can see what you're actually doing here. Right, there you go. Yeah. So this is the traditional way, of course, to make pesto alla genovese. And we have all this amazing basil, like tons of it that was just picked. So, I don't think we'll be going through all that. So we'll be giving some of it away.
That's one of the giveaways at the end of the show, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're drawing for that.
That's right. So that's perfect. And then you don't need to do that, you know. You can just throw it in there whole because then you have to use more muscles.
That's the part. Trying to get a little shortened. Yeah. Make it a little easier on myself. Yeah.
You can also call on someone else if you need assistance. You can just say, hey, how about somebody else taking over? Anyway, the good news is that you've got plenty of time. We're not going to have that for quite a while. So.
And how does it look to you?
It looks absolutely fantastic right now. It just needs to be a little bit more. And also the other thing that you can taste it a little bit as you go, but we've got salt with a little bit of garlic. So we took a clove of garlic at the beginning with some salt in the pestle, the mortar, and actually then it was ground up, mushed, all the cell walls crushed so that this wonderful garlic, which is locally grown, will be part of this concoction. And then we're adding toasted pine nuts and a lot of basil actually, a lot of elbow grease and some Parmigiano Reggiano. So all that is part of this. And we'll see how it tastes. You know, I love to tweak it a tiny bit and add a little bit of butter, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Gives it a little creaminess, so I kind of like that. But we'll see how it goes. The other thing is, may I just say, make certain that you take all the stems off that basil. And I'm talking not only to you, but to everybody who's listening or watching, because you got to make sure that, yes, right, there you go. You want all the stems, yes. You want all the stems off that basil so that it's easier to make the pesto, and also it tastes a little, we don't want that taste. It's okay, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not going to work. And I remember this story actually that this family in Liguria told me that they made pesto, and that was one of the products that they made. And their grandmother used to actually tear the leaves off the center vein. So not only was the stem not in there, right? Not only was the stem not in there, but the center vein wasn't in there either. She just sat there by hand and just tore all those up.
I mean, it's a pain in the butt to do that with kale when you're making like a kale salad, let alone on basil. Jeez.
Yep. That's what she did. It's kind of like Zen. It's a Zen thing, I think. You just kind of get into it and you just start doing it and
paying your dues to the cooking gods,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's okay, actually. Because what happens at the end is quite extraordinary. And when you make it this way, which I think I said this maybe at some previous show, I always made this in food processor.
Yeah.
But since I started using the mortar and pestle, I'll never go back to the food processor. I really mean that. Even though it's so much more convenient,
It tastes different?
Yeah, it tastes different. It has a completely different feel when you're, not only tasting, but when you're chewing it and you experience it in your mouth. And it just has so much more liveliness to it. It's hard to put that into any kind of concrete, description, but I think it's the difference between you putting your energy into this by actually, causing it to turn into this beautiful amalgamation of the ingredients, or you throwing them all in a food processor, turning on pushing a button and having this electric current go through it that just completely obliterates it, totally.
Yeah.
And the other thing that it does, according to Kenji Lopez-Alt, who's written The Food Lab, which is one of the most amazing current books about food science, it actually causes the olive oil to become a little bitter too when you put it in the blender. So that's something that we don't want. We don't want bitter olive oil. Wait, I saw something. I saw
A stem?
Yeah, I saw a stem. I better turn around and not look at you. Yeah, so you'll make it happen. Anyway, you can add more olive oil too. It's not a problem. Whatever works for you, and feel free to taste whenever you want. Okay, so Cynthia is really being a very great help, and if anybody wants to volunteer to help her as she goes along, feel free to do that. So, Chris, I would want to talk with you a little bit about this first group of students that I saw several of them wander in. So now they know they're in trouble now. The hot seat is going to, wow, pointing at like one of you, right? I see. Okay. So anyway, this is a special program. It's a 10-month program.
That's right.
And do you want to describe it a little bit?
So this program is aimed at training people to be organic farmers, in the shortest way possible to say it. But the program goes a little further than that. We try to teach people to farm within their ecosystem, kind of functioning within their community, within their natural ecosystem, and working with what they have and trying to be as creative and thoughtful as possible when they go about farming. So it's not just here's money, here's land, go grow stuff. It's, what do we really need to accomplish here? What's the best way to go about that? How do we fit in with our ecosystem best while we do that? So that's kind of the general gist of what we're getting at out there.
I was talking to a guy last week on the show. I don't know if anybody heard the show last week, but I was talking to a guy who's he's growing tomatoes up in just northwest of Des Moines. He's growing one variety of tomato, actually. And the story is quite incredible. Has anybody read the articles in the Des Moines Register several weeks ago about this gentleman who's doing these tomatoes? They're called the Sashas. So, all right, so here's the deal. These seeds came from Siberia, and he has 3,000 plants growing, and he has orders for these tomatoes that are over twice what he can produce, and he's growing them in a very sustainable, organic way, and they're being all of them are being bought by Hy-Vee and also by Wheatsfield. And so I can't wait to, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to get some of them, and maybe I'll be lucky enough I can even bring them into the next show. We'll see. But the bottom line is, to fit in with what you're talking about, he works 16-hour days.
Right.
You know, he's working constantly 16 hours. I think that it's very unlikely that most of us, because we're so divorced from our food chain, understand what it takes to produce the food that comes to our tables. Now, I'm talking about the food that comes to our tables from people who are growing in a regenerative manner, who are building up the soil. Oh, by the way, did you bring the compost tea?
No, we sprayed it all earlier.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that, the compost tea, in just a few minutes. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
That'll be great. Okay, so the bottom line is that conventional farming takes a lot less time. Not that it doesn't take effort, but it takes a lot less time.
Per unit of production, yeah, it takes less time, but more capital, you could probably say.
Right. And the people who are actually making this happen in a very sustainable and more than sustainable manner have to spend a lot more time doing it. And what I loved when I was talking with him was that he said to me, and he probably said it 2 or 3 times during the interview, that he literally loved every second of it.
Yeah.
You know, he was so totally enamored with what he was doing and watching what was happening. And his in-laws live on the property, and they're 94 and 96, I think, if I'm correct about that. And he said it's really brought a tremendous just a help to them, because now it's something really exciting that's happening in their lives, and it's happening on their property where they've lived for 70 years.
Well, yeah, that rings a bell with me, because my mom still lives on our family farm, and she's right over there. Yeah. And she comments how it's nice to see activity around the farm, because we don't farm it ourselves anymore. We rent it out to local neighbors, people we know. But it's really nice to see activity and just the goings-on of farming happening. So I know she enjoys it, and it's nice to go out there and still see, tractors running around or grain bins being filled, just activity. So I definitely understand that.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, because seeds are obviously, we've got the soil, which is a living entity, and then you've got the seeds. And the seeds for this particular tomato, for example, the story behind that, real quickly, was that this guy who brought them back to the States, he was leaving the next day when he met this man, Sasha. And Sasha said to him, you have to have these seeds to take back, because this is the best tomato in the world. And the story goes, according to the facts that have been communicated, that he walked 35 miles back to his home, got the seeds, walked 35 miles back, and got there 10 minutes before the train left to hand these seeds off.
Wow.
So that they could come to the States. Seed Savers has some of them in their vaults.
Really?
Yes, and the particular ones that are being grown in this Iowa community, small community, were actually hand-selected by a woman who's growing them in Colorado. And she selected them for Iowa, but I think that he's also going to use some of the, I'll say, stock seeds, because he just planted 300 more to do a late harvest, because he said those particular seeds love 40 and 50 degree temperatures. So he's hoping that come December, he's still going to have tomatoes.
Yeah, and that's crazy. I mean, tomatoes usually don't like to be below 60 degrees, and that's like pushing it for them. The hotter, the better for those guys. So to hear that they grow at 40 and 50, I mean, can I get some of those?
We're going to find out, huh? It's going to be really interesting. Obviously, if you get some, you can save the seeds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's one way to do. That's one way to do it. If you can't buy them, you can save them. So that's good. All right. So the students that you have for this, there are several of them that are here. So maybe you can try to coax them up to the front, or at least whoever's going to participate a little bit in here.
And got one, Edwin back there.
Really? Okay.
He volunteered.
All right. So he can come up. That'll be great. And then we'll talk to Dan a little bit following that before we bring you back on. So who do we have here? Who's coming up?
Edwin Soto.
Edwin Soto. Edwin, come on over here. Don't be scared. How you doing? I've seen you before because you were in the class that I spoke with.
You're the boss, right?
Well, here maybe so. Yeah, make some noises, no problem. So Edwin, let's move over here a little bit. All right. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this program.
I was looking at just different colleges online, and this one popped up, and it seemed pretty interesting as far as like the sustainable living aspect of it is. And then I was informed of this program whenever I was applying initially, and I thought it would be a great program to join, transitioning into now the new organic ag degree that they have going on.
So, what kind of background did you have before you came here? I'm kind of fishing for, do you have an agri background? What is it that makes you want to work so hard?
No real like big ag background or anything. Basic backyard gardening type stuff. My parents have a pretty good size. My parents have a pretty good size backyard. So that's where I started off, and something I really enjoy doing. And I figured that because I like it so much, it'd definitely be something I'd like to transition into a career path.
Okay, so let me give you a vision that maybe you've heard before. Okay. And that is that those of you who are involved in this program, you actually are custodians and have the opportunity to change the entire course of agriculture in the world, because the world is generally, matter of fact, more than generally, mostly commercial agriculture with commodity crops. And more people are finding, and in all countries, not just the United States, that there are an ever-growing number of health problems associated with consuming the food products that they have been consuming all their lives because of whatever the reasons, whether it's because of chemical buildup, because of lack of liveliness in the soil, because of the amount of time and processing between when that food was actually made and when it's actually consumed. Whatever the reasons, commercial agriculture, I think it's fair to say, I'm sure that many people would think it wouldn't be fair to say, but I'll say it. I think it's fair to say it doesn't work. And I don't feel that all commercial agriculture is, I'm not negative, I guess you would say, against commercial agriculture in general, but in general, large commercial approach to agriculture using herbicides, chemicals, etc., is not going to be the savior to the world that it was presented to be many years ago. So you guys have this opportunity. So now, how do you feel? How are your shoulders?
I guess they feel the same as before, just a little more tired.
He's a strong guy. He came in strong.
But yeah, I was in football for 6 years, so I'm used to lifting heavy.
Where are you from originally?
Houston, Texas.
Oh. Well, it's still just as hot here.
Yeah. It's the weather as far as like the summer goes is pretty similar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hot and humid.
Mm-hmm. Did you know that Houston is now one of the food capitals of the United States?
I had my suspicions.
Yeah, it's actually a destination for many people now because of a variety of different types of cuisine. But Laotian, I think, is one, or Vietnamese actually is the one that is enriching one aspect of that culinary community. So I can't wait to get down to Houston. Plus, there's a great deli down there I want to go to. So. Yeah.
Only you.
Yeah, well, that's I have my weaknesses. So all right. So I wish you all the best. And do you have is there any particular field of interest that you have when you're thinking about agriculture?
Urban farming.
Cool.
That interests me since that's what I started off doing, just backyard stuff and transitioning into the city.
Yeah, there's so much going on in that way right now. And I mean, rooftop gardens and all kinds of crazy stuff, so should be a lot of opportunities coming your way.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And thank you for being the only one of the students so far anyway who has volunteered to come up here. Now that you see that it's not too difficult, maybe we'll get somebody else to show. Maybe you'll just go twist an arm back there, okay?
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Steve.
I appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Dan, you want to come over? Sure. Talk? Okay. So you're assisting Chris. This is Dan Harvey. He's the assistant manager of the student farm at MUM. Yeah. And your background?
Well, I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska.
Where there's a great vegan restaurant right now. Can you believe that? In
Modern
Omaha?
Love? Modern Love, yeah. Right next to my favorite dive bar, actually.
That's good. Well, you know that today vegan food is what usually goes along with it in the places are cocktails, high-end cocktails. It's kind of like
Cocktail. Yeah, I love when the club's open.
first you go there, and then if you can make it, you go over to Modern Love.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Grew up in Omaha. For 10 years after high school, I played music and went on tour with bands. And then also in that time, I studied horticulture and greenhouse management at a community college. And then I transferred to MUM. And here I just finished an undergraduate degree. I guess I did an individualized major, agroecology and sustainability. And that kind of led me, like working from coast to coast on organic farms. I interned at Stone Barns Center for Food and Agriculture in Pocantica Hills, New York. And since then I've just kind of been in love with working too hard and not having a life because of food.
Well, you happen to intern at one of the most amazing restaurants in the country, the farm that's associated with the restaurant. Yeah. I don't know if you got a chance to eat there or not.
I did. Actually, I like the food that they prepare on Thursday afternoons more for like the farm crew. In the restaurant, it was more like a lot of raw stuff, just like serving you a radish on like a needle or something with some salt. But they made incredible farm meals on Thursday afternoons for everybody that was working on the farm. So, yeah, the food's great. Incredible people.
And really committed to trying to take agriculture into a whole different genre, to a whole different plane of existence, really.
Sure, and trying to pretty much tighten the relationship between the farm and restaurant. Dan Barber he likes to claim the guy who coined the term farm to table, but those guys are doing it in an incredible way. The capacity that they have, I don't know, seemingly like 30 to 50 people working in the restaurant at all times. They do lots of front of house and preparation kind of stuff, aesthetic, but then people working in the kitchen and whatnot are just, I don't know, their knowledge when it comes to food and vegetable production a lot of times exceeds that of the farmers. So it was fun to experience.
Yeah, that's why it costs several $100s to eat there, because of all the people that work there. Yeah, it's amazing that way. Anyway, Dan Barber has written a book that, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's called The Third Plate, and it's one of the best food books I think that you'll ever read, and very interesting discussion with numerous people around the world who are farming in very interesting and unique ways and creating products that are quite extraordinary. And I think that one of the other things that Barber has been doing lately, he's been working with Washington State. And that means you have to come up and talk now because you made that noise. He's been working with Washington State to develop different grain that actually fit along with what Chris was saying earlier, where you're actually growing things that work for the type of land that you're on. So working to develop a grain that works specifically in that particular area of New York, for example, that can be grown there, so that they can produce product. They can produce bread, for example, from grains that were grown right there, even though it's not a grain belt type of area.
Yeah. That's one thing that I really admire about Dan Barber as well, is that he pays a lot of attention to what the farmer needs to do and what the environment needs versus what, is the hot thing to sell at the moment. But his attention to the small grain production has been, inspiring, because, even in Iowa, a lot of, at least my understanding is that a lot of large-scale farmers have dropped grain production out of their rotations because they stopped being able to make money off of it. Small grains. Yeah, small grains. But it's a very important process to go through, at least for the environment and for a farm. So I don't know. I respect that a lot.
Well,
I appreciate it.
that is still one of we had this discussion on the show a number of months ago. That is one of the areas that has to still change in terms of the growth of the marketplace. Like in the specialty marketplace, you've already seen a maturing of, for example, cheese, wine, beer, coffee, chocolate, all those items. And people are now they're able to begin to make a living. The growers can make a living, the processors can make a living. Bean to bar chocolate, is something that's real, it's established. But so far, small grains production is something that people are doing still because they have such a great love for it. But one of the things that I've noticed, which is quite extraordinary, is that there are all of these small grain economies that are in place in many different areas around the country. As a matter of fact, every time I look at Instagram, I almost see somebody else that's, this small grain economy is going and they're working with these particular types of grains. And so in California, you have a number of them. You have a number of them back east. And it's really exciting. And there's a lot more going on, I think, on local, regional levels than most of us have any idea about. That is very inspiring as far as farming and the farm culture and the moving of that culture to a new paradigm is really happening.
Yeah. And I also think our community has a really good jump on this. There's a lot of people interested, but there's also people kind of taking the opportunity to go above and beyond and trying to establish, whether it be grain mills, small or large scale, and also just kind of getting the word out and starting the conversation about this is something that the farm needs, this is something that our environment needs, but it's also something that you are going to enjoy at the end of this process. So there's people in Fairfield especially getting really interested in biodynamic certification and also producing biodynamic small grains. There's farmers, there's people making different bread mixes, flour mixes, stuff like that. So we're in a good place for it, I think.
Yeah. So, and also, if you want to read more about it, about the different efforts that are going on, Amy Halloran has a book, I believe it's called The New Bread Basket, and it's a pretty comprehensive look at the different types of activities that are going on around the country in terms of these growing grain economies, small grain economies. All right. Well, thanks, Dan. Anything else that you want to add?
I think I'm all right.
All right. I hope you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. All right. Thanks for it. Anybody else coming up here or not? Any other students coming up here? Come on. Yeah, there you go. All right. Now, who are you, sir?
Brendan. I'm Sheila's dad.
Oh, okay. Well, Sheila's dad, thanks for coming. And thanks for helping out here. And if we need to move this to another area and then start another whole batch, we can do that. We can just grab another bowl and we can dump it all into there. And we had a little thing with it. Oh yeah, here you go, right here. Here's a spatula and you can do that. That's good. My wife's telling me that, Jason, that when we're recording this for TV, that it's terrible on the radio. So I have to try to remember to say things to describe what we're doing here. And I always forget because I'm caught up in the moment because we're filming this, which is a little bit different than what we do. You're sending me pictures. So here we go. Great. She can't access it live?
Her protege over here.
No. Well, we'll have to talk to the people at Fairfield Media Center about that. I can't help you. Anyway, we are live at Green Building Supply. We are doing some amazing food. We are making pesto alla genovese in a mortar and pestle, which is a really cool traditional way to do it. And all you have to do is use a little bit of salt. Get yourself a mortar and pestle. Get a little bit of salt, a little bit of garlic, crush it up really nicely in there, and then start adding basil, pine nuts, Parmesan cheese. If you want to make it truly the correct way with the actual pesto alla genovese recipe, then you have to have a little bit of pecorino sardo also. We don't have access to that, so we just use a little bit more Parmigiano Reggiano and olive oil, of course. And if you want to make it the true way, Ligurian olive oil would be what you would use. But sorry, no access to that either. So we'll do the best we can. All right, and you are, sir?
Kyle Amsbury.
Kyle Amsby.
Yes. I'm from just outside of like Phoenix, Mesa, Arizona.
Did I already ask you if you went to Pizzeria Bianco?
Yes, you did. You did when you taught that first class. You did.
And
I
did
have
you?
been there, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been there.
And Pizzeria Bianco, for those of you who don't know, it is many people think it's the best place to eat pizza in the whole United States. Chris Bianco is the owner of Pizzeria Bianco. He has a new book that just came out this week, actually, so you could check that out if you're interested. And he makes all of his own mozzarella in-house. He makes, he uses his own tomatoes for tomato sauce. He, of course, makes all of his own dough, and it's quite an extraordinary. And he's known all over the country as a great pizzaiolo. So someplace to look forward to if you ever go to Phoenix. Sorry again.
No. Phoenix, there's got a lot going on there. But then what actually brought me out here was more the meditation end of it. And then I kind of stumbled into this agriculture thing. And
Okay, so you're talking about the fact that the Maharishi University of Management, one of the key ingredients, I guess you would say, is that people practice the Transcendental Meditation program. That's part of it. So that's what brought you here originally from Phoenix.
that's 100% why I came here. Even more beyond that is more like I learned through David Lynch Foundation, which does a lot for veterans and just kids that are going through a lot of things in high stressful environments. And I'm a veteran, and I got a scholarship through him. It taught me, and it just completely changed my life, where now I'm in Iowa.
So were you actually, I know that program is specifically aimed for people who have PTSD. Are you somebody who was suffering from that?
I'm going to say, without saying I am something or putting a label on it, I think every single person that spent 15 months, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, you're going through high stressful things. You got some problems. But whether it's PTSD or not, but there's just things that are a little bit more high stressful that you're not used to dealing with that are now through TM or through any form of meditation, really, I think can really improve your day-to-day life and really bring you back to where you want. And then mixed with sustainable living and agriculture and small farming and things like that, where you're in the ground. Those are the types of people that want to do those things anyway. So it's just mixing the best of both worlds in a little small town, and it's kind of amazing that how much can happen here and what is happening here and is what is going to continue to happen through a program like what we're in right now. This regenerative organic agriculture program is top notch. It's new. We're struggling. We're building it, and it is going to be what it is. But we are, like you said, probably setting the future. We are what is going to really change things, and it's amazing, and it's grateful to be around guys like Chris and Dan that are actually sacrificing a lot. They could be in other places. They could be in San Diego with his girlfriend, but no, he's here with us.
San Diego and his girlfriend.
Yeah,
what's that?
It's well, that's where I was a year ago running a half marathon, San Diego. So it's things are all it's really great that what's going on here, and that's what brought me here is just really, really positive things, and the future is what we're going to change.
Well, hold on.
And having these guys here, it makes it's a consolation prize of not being out in San Diego with my girlfriend. But these guys are great to be around. It gets a little tense sometimes on the farm. I think we can all agree on that. But that's what farming is. There's a lot of stress, and Kyle's not de-stressing as much as he'd like. But I think we're helping him learn a few things. I hope we're learning him something's good. So.
Well, what are you learning?
I'm learning basically a completely new field. I came here dumb, a dumb consumer. I was able to stay active, that I never mattered what I drank, what I ate, what I did. It didn't matter. I was just young. I was just a gung-ho guy, and it just consumed like a ignorant person. I think a lot of Americans are that's what we're taught almost. That's what we're exposed to, and it wasn't that I didn't know. It wasn't affecting me. So then once I kind of got exposed to more things, I became a vegan, and then I learned more about things. And before I even came here, and then through meditation, it's just it all just comes around, and it starts making me realize okay, I used to not want to basically think about living forever type of thing. I was in a high pace mentality. Now it's okay, I want to live forever type of thing. Let's look at not now, let's look at the future and what we can really do to change it.
It's really interesting that you're saying that, because I thought about that a lot over the last few weeks, because I used to be young once. No. Yeah, honestly. And I used to be able to do exactly what you said. I could eat anything and it wouldn't show, and it wouldn't affect me at all. And I was thinking about it the reason I was thinking about it a lot is because it's really your generation and the generation that's following you that we have to get this message to. And it's harder to get that message out because of just that fact. You know, you're in the now, you're living life, everything's exciting, there's so much going on, and to think about, or to have to think about, what am I eating? How is it made? Where does it come from? What is it doing to the environment? You know, all those things. It's almost like antithetical to that age, right? It's something that you have to really open your awareness to quite deeply, to step out of that age bracket and be able to look at it from a more mature, longer viewpoint.
Oh no, and that's even just, I think, just like what you talk about when Dan's saying he's from Omaha, and the first thing you say is a vegan restaurant. Like, the fact that is what comes to your mind, and that the ideas and the way people are thinking, and like that the things that they're eating, like people are thinking differently. Like, we didn't think that way 15 years ago or 20 years ago, or even when I was like, I'm not that old, but I know, like,
Certainly not as young as I am, though.
no, but it's just the fact that there are vegan restaurants. They're vegetarian. They're just more conscious, organic. Like, they're thinking more. People are thinking. We're caring about each other. It seems more to me than anything. It's like we're spreading the knowledge, not out of like it's like tell your neighbor, tell your friend, like help them out is more of what I'm on. I'm on the level of how can you become sustainable in your environment, in your neighborhood. It's like, well, teach your neighbor how to do something that you think you know that they don't know. And it's like, if you can really help someone, it's the simplest things to do things like that. Invite them over for a little meal that they eat every day and you see them, well, bring them over for a vegetarian meal, teach them something, and that thing will spread. And that's what's going on right now is this consciousness and what's going on here in this generation, like we're gonna change this where people know what's up, but they don't want to admit it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to do it. And it's like, change is hard. And right now is when it's going to happen. And it's going to be positive and it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, and change is tough. And I was asking, maybe Chris, you'll help me because I'm forgetting the name of the gentleman he used to be the head of the Stone Barns Foundation, or he is the head of the Stone Barns Foundation still. He used to be the head of the Leopold Center. He's 80 years old. Fred Kirschnerman, right. Fred, I was talking to Fred once, and he is an incredible guy. He's in his 80s. He farms, I think, like 1,200 acres still in South Dakota, North Dakota, organically. And I said to him, how do you keep such a positive attitude? Because, I would just think it would be tough after all these years and everything that he's seen. And he said it's really easy. And I said, well, what do you mean? How is it easy? He said, because there is no doubt that farming will change and it will all be, he used the word sustainable, I'll use the word regenerative. He said, because it can't sustain itself the way it is right now. And so I'm totally optimistic because I know that that's the case. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And then he went on to say that if you get a group of commercial farmers in a room together and you discuss with them whether or not they are okay with, the commercial aspects of farming and the commodity crops and how they have to go about tilling the soil and what they put on it, they'll all say yes. He said if you get them in a room as individuals, he said every single one of them will say that it's not sustainable. So that was also extremely fascinating to me. And here's a guy who knows, in his position as not only a practical farmer, but somebody who has headed two very important foundations, that are designed to work towards the future of regenerative agriculture. So that in and of itself was just another way for me to feel really happy about what I was doing in terms of just bringing some of these stories to people, and also to know that the next generation and the next generation are going to have even a better opportunity to really enjoy the fruits of all these labors. So.
All right, yeah,
That's cool.
No, that's really cool. Like, and it is happening, and that's I don't know.
Well, I just want to say thanks. I just want to say thanks.
It's like it's as easy as it seems. Like, maybe I think that's just kind of our role. That's kind of, I guess, what I thought my role was, joining the military after 9/11 types of things. It's like that's what we are doing. That's what we have to do. Like, it's just there's 6 of us in this program now. Started with 15, so it's like that's what we're gonna do. We'll keep doing it. It's gonna happen, and just know that it's gonna change. we're going to be healthier, we're going to live, we're going to be sustainable, and people are being way more conscious, and it's just an amazing thing to know.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks,
it. Yeah, take care. So, Chris, what have you been doing over here? Because you've been busy the whole time.
I've made the crust at this point. Huh?
That's it? Dan said that's it. That is so funny.
Takes a little elbow grease. Damn. I've made the crust, so that's...
He gets the last piece if there is one.
Yeah, that's right. So that's like dates, a little bit of water, almond flour, coconut oil, some vanilla extract, like a cup of grated beets. You squeeze them to extract the water from it. Some cacao powder and a little bit of salt. So that gets the crust made. You mash that down into a pan, just evenly in a layer, and you put that into the fridge or the freezer, depending on how much time you have. I put it in the freezer. Actually, I knew this was going to take a long time, so I made a cake beforehand. I made one yesterday. So I've watched a few cooking shows, so I know how this goes. We bust it out right at the end, just as I finish making it. So if we bring it, I'll bring it out in just a moment so it warms up. It needs to warm up before we can serve it. So I've made the crust, and I'm just starting on the topping. So the recipe calls for macadamia nuts. I'm using cashews. They're a little softer. They will blend up a little easier. This has almond milk and maple syrup in it to help sweeten it. And then lemon juice, and I'm actually putting a lemon zest in there. A suggestion from Sheila, actually, to really carry extra little kick into the topping.
We're not shooting for Sheila anymore. Who was shooting for Sheila? Somebody was. Oh, you were. She got on now? So anyone can join us on live stream, right? So, hi, Sheila.
So I'm almost done. I got to kick on the Vitamix here in a little bit. But there is, I wanted to highlight some of the simpler things you can do. This is a little out of my comfort zone, but I think it's going just fine. But I did want to show some simple things that people could do with some produce. So the simple radish. No one really knows what to do with a radish other than
I do.
Take a bite out of it. Well, Steve, demonstrate there. But it always has a kick, especially in summer. It gets really hot and just kicks you in the mouth right when you take a bite. There's two ways you can actually beat the bite of a radish. One is cook it. You can oven roast it. It's like 20 minutes at 425. You toss them with some olive oil. You can grill it or have it in the oven. That works pretty well. It's my favorite. But the way to keep it raw and much more easy way is to cut a radish into slices and put it into an ice bath. So you just took a bite. How was that?
It was good because I was going to say it also depends on if you want to cut the bite. The bite is, I would have had to taste it earlier, to know whether the bite's been tempered a little bit. But you can do the same thing with onions, for example. Just let them sit in an ice bath for an hour, and that takes a lot of the bite out of the onion. So it's a nice thing to do. So this is perfect. That's great. And I also wanted to mention, because the Indians are going to get restless pretty soon when they start to figure out that there's not much going on as far as cooking is concerned. So does anybody want to cut up some squash? Yeah, that'd be awesome, because we're making pesto and we're going to use it on the squash. That's what's good. Any way you want, smaller pieces would be great so we have a lot of surface area. Yeah. No, wait, so this was the raw radish first. Yes, it's tempered about, wow. How long has it been soaking?
About 30 minutes.
Okay, so it's been soaking about 30 minutes, and I say it's down about 40% actually.
Yeah. And if I would have had, a ton of ice in there, just really bathe it in ice and water, it would knock it down a lot more. Wow. It's super easy way if you just have ice and water. So
that's great for radishes.
Yeah. All
right. And what else? Right now, what we're doing is we're going to make, one of the things we're going to make is a fresh sweet corn. We're going to take fresh sweet corn, and we're going to just cook it on the stovetop for a few minutes, and then we're going to stir in some miso butter. And the way you make the miso butter is really simple. First of all, you got to buy some really great miso, unless you happen to be a miso maker, which I doubt that anybody in this audience is. But so you go buy a really good miso. That's the first thing. And how do you know whether it's really good or not? Well, probably unpasteurized would be a really good one to start with. And if you can't find that, then just try to taste some of the misos and decide what kind of bean you're interested in, whether it's a chickpea or whether it's a soybean or brown rice. This one is a brown rice miso. And all you have to do in your mortar and pestle, for example, is soften butter. And for this large group, what we did was we softened 1 stick of butter, which is 8 tablespoons, and we added to that 2 tablespoons of miso. So it's 1/4 of the amount of miso as to your butter. And then you're just mixing it all up. And we did add a little garlic clove, not necessary, but we did add that. And I was going to add a little tiny bit of homemade hot sauce. This is from Rapid Creek Cidery. Matt Steigerwald made this, and I thought it would be good in there. We could maybe stir that in a little bit. No, it's not too late. We could maybe do that. Well, okay. Okay, everybody's saying we should do that. So we'll do that. We'll stir that in a little bit, and then we'll try this corn. You could also grill the corn. That would be another way, and then just grill it right on the cob, and it'd be delicious that way too.
Keep it an easy way to do that to keep from burning your corn. Keep it in the shuck. If it's in its leaves when you buy it, keep it in the leaves. Put it on the grill. Cook it that way until the leaves are all singed on the outside. That's a pretty good indicator that it's pretty well cooked on the inside. You need to rotate it, but it's an easy way not to just burn your corn right off the bat.
And we're not going to add any salt to this corn. Normally I would, of course, but this miso butter has got enough salt in it. It'll take care of itself that way. And I might add a little bit of water. We'll see as we go along here. So I wanted to ask Chris, what is it that you have gotten out of this course so far in terms of managing the farm, in terms of how your expectations have changed, developed over the course of time, the course of a few months now?
Wow. It's been a hell of an experience. I got into it, well, I guess what really motivated me to take this job was that I've had the personal goal for a few years of, by the age of 30, I want to be able to start and run my own farm. Whatever shape that took, I kind of let that happen however it was going to. But here I am, 29, and we're 2/3 of the way through the first season of the farm that myself and Dan and the students have all created ourselves. And I'd say I'm on pace for my personal goal. So that was a huge motivator for me to. Do you need me to hold that?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask somebody. Dan, could you fill up some water for me, and just fill up a little water for me so I can get the caramelized parts off the bottom of this pan and get them onto the corn kernels themselves. That'll be wonderful.
So I'm on pace for that. I'm 29 now. Turned 29 this year, so I have another year to practice before I could say I really know what I'm doing. So that was a big motivator for me to stay here. It was tough not to go out to San Diego and be with my girlfriend, but I am accomplishing some very personal goals, kind of bucket list stuff, I would say. So that was what kind of kept me here to start with. And then since then, I've learned a lot more than just farming. Being an educator has interested me. Coaching has always interested me. Farming has interested me. But never did I think they would all come together so hard and so fast in one setting. These guys are great. They're good sports, but they are challenging at times. Love you guys.
I'd love to hear some details about that, but anyway.
What happens on the farm stays on the farm. So it's been a personal growth as well. And just getting to know these guys has been really satisfying. I mean, you heard from two of them that are very different. Each of them has their own story that's, the more I learn about them, I don't know, the cooler they get, I guess. It's not a very good way to describe it, but it gets more and more satisfying the more I learn about them. So, and something you guys touched on earlier was making a difference in the world, I guess, and that's more of a lifelong goal for myself. And this is kind of my first step in helping others along that path too. You know, I know some stuff, you know, like Kyle said, he came here not knowing much at all. And for whatever I know, I can pass on, and they're helping me learn too. They're pushing me to figure out solutions to problems that I never thought of. They ask questions a mile a minute, and I've never never thought I could answer so many so fast, but they're pushing me to be better. So it's personally and professionally, this is an incredible experience for me.
Well, anyone who's taught at any level is always rewarded when people are engaged enough to ask questions, right? So congratulations.
Yeah, at least they're not just deadpan staring at me and just out in the field complaining about me all day. Yeah, they are engaged. They want to know. So it is satisfying in that respect. I really appreciate that.
One of the things that I remember, and I can't remember who it was that I actually read who said this, or it was somebody that was a guest on the show. I'm just not sure, but it doesn't really matter. But the bottom line was that they said that the only way to change the actual eating habits of the general public is education. And because education is the key to it, that if you educate people in the household, so parents, you can change an entire generation within one generation, essentially. So as if the parents pass on this knowledge of eating healthily, how important it is to be a steward of land, and how important it is to think about what you're consuming and how you're consuming it, then everything will change within one generation, which is kind of like what we were talking about earlier, and it's quite extraordinary that way.
But I don't think the parents know.
Yeah, well, parents have to know. That's a good point.
Well, I was going
Right.
to say it's not even, not to disagree with you, but to disagree with you.
You can.
It's not the parents' generation that we need to be teaching. I mean, as much as we can, yeah, we need to teach and educate everyone who's, you know, of age and doing stuff. But it's really going to be the younger guys, the younger women. I mean, these guys right here, they're the generation coming up. I mean, as you get not so young, I mean, these guys are going to be the ones that start making decisions about the world. And it's not enough to change the ideas of the older generation that's already kind of stuck in their ways. You know, we need to start with younger people and get them to see the difference. We don't need to change their minds all at once, but we need them to at least start wondering what else we can do. You know.
Yeah, it's a great vision of possibilities, and I love it. And again, I want to thank all of you guys for participating in this program and for participating just on a very small level on the show. And I want to just make a mention as we're doing the miso corn butter. Miso is a living food, so one thing that you do want to do when you're using it is you don't want it to come to a boil, because you don't want to kill the wonderful living enzymes that are in it. So it's important that you either take it off the heat, or you have your heat low enough that you're not going to kill those little bacteria that are making all kinds of good things that go on in your gut after when you get to eat this. So this is the miso corn butter, and if somebody wants to pour it into a big bowl, we can taste it. Somebody can volunteer to. The hot sauce, right, of course. I will do that. Somebody can volunteer to taste it, and we can see how things go, and then we can get everything else started. So thank you so much for all of your work on this pesto. We've had a couple of people. There's something I'm just not sure about. I don't understand, the color isn't exactly the way I would envision it. Does it have the cheese in it? Maybe more cheese and also more olive oil, I think, could work in that a little bit. And I'm going to put a little bit of hot sauce in there. And if you're free, you can feel free to add a little bit more yourself if you want later on. Anyway, by the way, this is Great Taste Live at Green Building Supply, and I want to thank Green Building Supply for their generosity in offering the building to us every month, and their kitchen. It's terrific. We want to thank them very much for that, and we want to thank everybody's Whole Foods who contributes the food, other than the food that came right off the farm, of course. So to both of those parties, thanks very much, and also to Jason Strong, who comes here from Fairfield Media Center to make this available so people can see it not only on live stream but also on the Fairfield Media Center YouTube channel. Those of you who have come to enjoy this live show, thank you also for doing that. It's a great pleasure to have you here. So what have we learned? What have we learned? We've learned that you need a mortar and pestle. So if you don't have one, go get one. Because even though the charter of the station is that we can't give calls to action, that's one of the things that an educational community station can't do, I think that we can get by with telling everybody to go get a mortar and pestle. I think we'll be all right there. The second thing that we've learned is that there is a tremendous amount, I think, of inspiration to be gained from not only our community, but people who are doing these kinds of things in communities all over this country and all over the world, frankly. There was Slow Food USA had a huge convention in Denver in the past couple of weeks, and a lot of great initiatives were discussed at that time, and certainly all the many different projects that were going on all over the country. And that's another organization that if you want to see what's happening on a worldwide basis, sometimes we get lost in just our little community, or we don't even see what's going on in other communities around this country, but let alone around the whole world. And so if you investigate, you can find out by looking at slowfood.org. You can see all of the different presidia that they sponsor all over the world. And what these are projects where foods have become endangered, essentially. And they are contributing money, expertise, know-how, resources to the communities to try to keep all of these foods alive and also keep the traditions alive and to provide marketing opportunities for people. So they exist all over the world, and it's tremendous. And you're eating raw zucchini, and it's probably good, right? Yeah, it's good. So, okay.
So here is the finished product of what I'm about to finish.
So what you're showing everybody is what exactly? Describe that.
So a raw beet cake with a macadamia nut topping that has lemon juice in it to give it a little bit of bite. So it's overall very sweet because it has dates in it and maple syrup, but it has substance. It is raw and it is vegan. So you have to keep it cool or cold to help it keep its structure. The topping, which I just finished, you can look at here, is actually pretty mushy. I mean, you can move it around. It doesn't look so appetizing right now. But you put it in the fridge for like 30 minutes to an hour, and then you can kind of work with it more like a frosting, spread it a little better.
And what's in that again?
This one is a cashew nut. And this has almond milk, maple syrup, fresh lemon juice. I put some lemon zest in there to really give it a kick of lemon, vanilla extract, a little bit of salt, and just coconut oil. So I don't know. I never thought that cooking raw would actually be this easy, and it's a lot easier than cooking with heat because you can't mess it up. You don't cook. Yeah, that's right. You don't cook it. So you just have to grade it right or measure it right. And my mom taught me how to cook when I was young. I can read a measuring cup just as well as anybody else. So it's actually really enjoyable, and the overall treat at the end is pretty delicious. So.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought this up because that's really the key. If you want to get into the kitchen and learn how to do stuff, you just have to get your hands dirty, and it's the same thing in farming, right? You got to get your hands dirty.
There is no substitute for experience in farming, and definitely in the kitchen too. I mean, these guys have been out on the farm for months now, and thick and thin, it gets tough, but they're learning by doing. And I know from personal experience that that's how you learn how to do stuff like this. You can read every book, but you're not an expert until you can actually go out and do it.
Chris, Dan, all the students, thank you guys so much for sharing. Really appreciate it. You've been listening to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Steve Bosch, your host every week for 60 minutes of delicious radio on KRUU FM.
Great taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.